the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side.
Okay, so what do we mean by economic growth? What we mean is real GDP per person rises, and rises over a long period of time. So real GDP, remember, that's production, that's output, and it's output per person. What this means is that if we look at the economy over a period of time, we have more stuff per person at the end of our time than at the beginning. So if we look over a 10 or 20 year period, more production, more stuff. That does not, remember, GDP doesn't tell us that we're happy, right? We might prefer a simpler lifestyle, or all that production might be creating pollution and congestion and that we don't like. So it's about stuff, right? It's not about how happy we are. It's about stuff. We have more stuff over time. It turns out that the thing that tells us what's going on with our economic growth is, generally speaking, the capital to labor ratio. So remember that capital is the economist's word for things that we use to make other things. So factories and computers and equipment that goes in the factories and trucks and airplanes. And you say, why does that matter? How much capital we have per worker, right? Capital labor ratio is how much capital there is per worker. If we look at the list of countries of the world by their capital labor ratio, and then we look at the list of countries in the world by income per person, those two lists are basically the same. The more capital you have per worker, the more income your country has. And the reason for that's simple. If you need to dig a hole, and that's your job, is digging holes, are you happier if I give you the shovel, or are you happier if I give you the backhoe? Hopefully you're happier if I give you the backhoe, right? The person with the bigger capital, the backhoe, is going to dig more holes than the person with the shovel. And if you get paid per hole, the person with the backhoe is going to make more money than the person with the shovel. Way more than the person with their bare hands. Okay? Machines coupled with people, we've talked about this before, but machines coupled with people are how we're productive and how we get things done. Okay? So, economic growth is an interesting subject. Because if we go back in time, if we go back to 1900 and we compare the United States and Argentina back in 1900, it turns out that the United States and Argentina had about the same income per person. We were about the same well off as a country. In other words, typical lifestyle, typical standard of living in Argentina was about the same as typical standard of living in the United States. Okay? Today, the United States is about 4 times higher than Argentina. So we were about the same. In 120 years, we are about 4 times higher than Argentina. And we need to explain why that happens, because at least most of us prefer to be at the higher end than down at the lower end. Okay, so everything we do, we always start with this, what did Adam Smith say? Okay? So, Adam Smith, remember, was a classical economist. We have what we call the Neoclassical theory. Whenever you see neo in front of classical, that means we added math to the theory. But you don't have to worry about it. It's the same basic theory. It's a pretty simple theory. Okay? If you're a classical economist, you believe that savings and investment are always equal, that whatever gets saved gets turned into investment. And remember that investment isn't buying a share of stock. Investment isn't doing whatever your 401, that's not investment, your 401k. To an economist, investment is buying capital. So what matters is the ratio of how much capital you have to labor, how many machines you have per worker. The way to grow is to get more and more and more machines to each one of those workers. Okay? So we need investment to grow, And in the classical world, if savings and investment are always equal, life is simple. We save more, we're going to invest more, and the economy is going to grow. So again, we're giving up. We talked about this before. In the classical world, what you do is instead of spending everything you have now, you don't spend some of it now, and you put it into improving your capital stock. You invest it, create more factories, and the result of that is that down the road, your income is going to be higher. So saving creates investment, it creates economic growth, but to grow, we have to consume less now, and that will allow us to consume more later. Savings is the key, okay? In Adam Smith's world, savings is the key to investment and therefore to economic growth. So what do the data say about this? Well, you look at countries like the United States, and we're horrible at saving, right? We don't save that well. You look at Japan, they save a lot better than we do, but over the last 20 years, the United States has grown faster than Japan. Okay, you have savings might help you to grow, but it's certainly not the key thing in whether most countries have grown or not grown. Okay, so we've moved beyond that theory, moved beyond the Adam Smith theory. It's not that we don't think savings are important, but something else is going on. So we have modern theory of economic growth, and it comes from a man who won the Nobel Prize just a couple years ago, Paul N. Romer, up there in the little drawing. And you notice he says he won the Nobel Prize for integrating technological innovations into long-run macroeconomic analysis. The Svergies-Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel. So Nobel didn't actually create a Nobel Prize in economics. The Swedish central bank, the Riksbank, created a prize in memoriam, in memory of Alfred Nobel, and they fund it. Okay? But it's a simple theory. Remember, in Adam Smith, back to our buddy here, Adam Smith's theory is that economics is about that long run, right? The short run takes care of itself. Everything happens just fine because we get to equilibrium in the short run. The theory is we need to look at the long run, the wealth of nations. How do countries get wealthy over the long run of time? Okay? Adam Smith's emphasis is on the long run. So what Romer does, or at least what he won the Nobel Prize for, is by telling us that really how you grow is through invention and innovation, new ideas. Okay? It's new ideas that make us grow. New inventions, new technology we can put in, and also new ways to run a business. So if you look at Japan, part of Japan's success isn't inventing new things, it's inventing new ways to make things. So in the United States, we might invent the transistor and the computer chip, which we did. In Japan, they come up with a new way to run a car factory. So Japanese car factories, they have methods of inventory management that were new. They have methods of adapting the factory so that it can change from making one kind of car to another kind of car. So your country might grow and be strong because you come up with new ideas of new things you can do. Your country might grow also because you come up with new and better ways to make things. Okay? But either way, it's about innovation. It's about improving what you're making and how you make it. And so I put the Mirage up here because the Las Vegas story that matters here is if you go back to 1989 when the Mirage was built, it was way bigger than all the other hotels, right? The Mirage is the first hotel that was specifically built to be several thousand rooms, to be a couple thousand rooms. It's the first hotel that had a theme, right? It had the volcano, it had all this other stuff, it had a cirque, it had all of the things that we associate with the modern Las Vegas. When you think of what happens on the Strip, what's a Strip hotel like? What does it have? Well, it's big and it's got, pool and some kind of thing and shopping. And well, all of that came from the Mirage. Before the Mirage, that was not the way Las Vegas was. Las Vegas hotels were much smaller. They didn't have the kind of amenities that they had. They had a showroom, but it was So the innovations in the Mirage completely changed the whole of way Las Vegas operates, and we get this huge expansion and growth and innovation in the system that comes from the Mirage. It's not savings that made Las Vegas boom, it's innovations that made Las Vegas boom. Okay, some things that we need to understand about that. The key to growth then, or the representation of growth, should have something to do with how many patents you're doing. How many, right? A patent is a deal where you take a new invention and you get the right to be the exclusive user of that. So you invent a new drug that cures a disease. You get to be the only company that makes that drug for a period of years, like 17 years. You get to be the only company. So people invent new drugs. Somebody's going to invent a new drug that works on the coronavirus, and for 17 years, they're going to be the only people that have that drug, and they're going to charge a lot of money for that drug because they do. So the United States was number one in patents for a long time, and we're still number one in patents. But interestingly, Germany used to be number two, and now China's number two. And China's creation rate of patents is growing faster than anybody else's creation rate of patents, and they're catching up. Okay, so the United States used to be by far the world leader in patents and how much money we were spending on doing research and development and all that, and we have greatly slipped in those areas. Okay, we're just not putting the money into invention that we used to, into innovation that we used to. And if this theory of how we grow is true, that's not good for us in the long run, right? We need to put more effort into coming up with new things. A related term to this is what we call human capital. Human capital is the skills and abilities and training that individuals have. So you're in college, you're working to improve your human capital. Hopefully when you get out of college, you'll know a whole bunch more stuff and be much more capable of going out into the workforce than you were before you got into college. So the money you're spending on school is an investment in your human capital, making you more skilled in it. Okay? We all have our individual capital, right? LeBron James has human capital that lets him be a great NBA player, and it doesn't matter how much time I spend outside shooting a basketball. I'm never going to have that kind of human capital. But hopefully, no matter how much time LeBron James spends trying to give econ lectures, he'll never be as good at that as I am. But human capital, okay? So it's not just economists, and the Romer theory doesn't just say it's about having machines and whatever. The other way that's part of this is human capital. We need people who can code. We need people who learn how to be engineers and be scientists. And that's human capital that's part of this driving innovation. If there aren't any engineers in the United States, then it's going to be very difficult for us to invent new things. If there aren't any scientists in the United States, we're not going to invent new things. So we need to put that time and effort into improving our human capital. So again, what's this all mean for the long run? The countries that emphasize research and development and science and math and engineering, those countries should be the countries that grow over the long run.